Discovered love. An amazing date revealed an unexpected journey to motherhood and transformation. Sarah's stethoscope hung around her neck like a weight. As one of the most respected doctors in her charming Midwestern town, her days were filled with saving lives and improving community health. Yet, amidst the accolades, she felt adrift. Every morning she looked in the mirror, questioning the societal narrative that dictated marriage and motherhood was a must, especially at 35. She moved through life like a ship lost at sea, grappling with what everyone else wanted for her: a husband, children, a compliant life. It was frustrating, suffocating. Who decided this was the path anyway? On an ordinary Tuesday at the cafe, a jolt of electricity surged through her as she caught sight of David. His warmth and laughter echoed through the air as he played with his 6-year-old daughter, his love evident in every glance and playful nudge. Sarah found herself envious, not just of their moments, but of the simplicity that wrapped around their bond. It collided sharply with her own craving for familial connection. She couldn't shake off the gnawing desire for companionship that seemed just out of reach. As she took a sip of her coffee, she noticed the longing mirrored in David's eyes when he caught her gaze. An instant connection unspooled, a shared understanding that felt like a balm to their individual wounds. Clarity settled in her heart. David was also navigating his own tempest of expectations with a chaotic divorce behind him. A single father longing for stability, he sought camaraderie just as much as she did. But as their gentle flirtation blossomed over laughter-filled park dates and warm cups of coffee, pressure mounted. The realization that she was not just a doctor, but also a woman with shifting dreams of motherhood, raged within her. Then, after a whirlwind of dates and confessions, the test confirmed what she had feared. She was unexpectedly pregnant. The roller coaster of emotions surged through her, excitement entwined with an imminent fear that clawed at the edges of her resolve. How could she reconcile her ambitions with impending motherhood? The sleepless nights of her dream career juxtaposed with the very real prospect of nurturing new life seemed monstrous. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. David, too, faced an inner storm. He yearned for a partner who could navigate the complexities of co-parenting while keeping his daughter's well-being at the forefront. The emerging family dynamic felt fragile against the societal judgment that loomed like storm clouds overhead. As every celebration turned into scrutiny from friends and family, Sarah saw their laughter-filled moments tainted by external pressures. With every day filled with doubt, she stood at the precipice of a life-changing decision, her heart heavy. Amid the turmoil, David's grandmother, a beloved midwife, had left behind a trove of heartfelt letters, affirmations of love that spoke to the intricacies of motherhood, complex, raw, and transformative. Sarah found solace in those words, igniting hope yet dousing her in uncertainty. Could they transcend their individual fears and forge a new existence together? The emotional weight pressed harder as secrets from David's past merged with her future. In that moment, staring into David's deep-set eyes filled with questions and worries of their own, she whispered, "What if we can't make it work?" Both spiraled into a moment, frozen in anguish, where the joys and fears fought like fire and ice, intertwined in a web of potential love, yet stranded by doubts that threatened to unravel everything. The uncertainty lingered heavily in the air as Sarah turned away from David, her mind racing. The pregnancy test echoed loudly in her thoughts, a glaring reminder of a truth she couldn't ignore. It wasn't just about her feelings. Choices now extended into the potential future of another life. A life that needed her, but could also upend everything she had worked so passionately to build. Sarah's instinct told her she had to ground herself, locate the remnants of her resolve buried beneath the avalanche of emotions. She excused herself under the pretext of needing a moment alone, stepping away to the quiet sanctuary of a nearby park. It was suffocating, this whirlwind of possibilities. As she settled onto a bench, she gazed at the trees, their leaves swaying rhythmically in the evening breeze. They seemed indifferent to her turmoil, yet serene in their existence. She pulled her phone from her pocket and scrolled through saved images. Pictures of her career milestones. Her first surgery, community health workshops, countless patient thank yous, all symbols of her dedication. With every swipe, she felt a pang of grief. Was she prepared to let that go? Each achievement felt like an anchor, yet here was a tidal wave of responsibility threatening to drag her under. In desperate need of clarity, Sarah closed her eyes, remembering a time when she felt untouchable, filled with purpose. She had always desired to make an impact, to shape lives in profound ways, and now she stood on the brink of an entirely different form of creation. But was indeed motherhood something she yearned for? Or was it merely a suffocating expectation wrapped in a beautiful package? The thought of her own mother's incessant encouragement loomed large, feeding her doubts rather than alleviating them. Sarah had always envisioned her life as one around career pursuits. The idea of personal fulfillment felt intimately tied to her ability to save lives, not necessarily bearing them. Yet the delicate reality remained. David's daughter, Emma, now intertwined in her very thoughts. Would she resent being a stepmother? Or worse, could she resent David for altering the course of her life? Each question was an arrow, piercing the softness of her heart with ache. As if to assuage her chaos, Sarah began to think about practical steps. She could confide in her close friend, Lily, an unyielding support since their college days. Lily had faced her share of life's storms and always emerged wiser and stronger. Perhaps laying bare her fears and hopes could illuminate a path forward. Determined, Sarah rose from the bench, taking a deep breath. It was time to face her fate. Not just for herself, but for the potential life she was carrying. The decision felt monumental, a mountain to climb without a visible path. Yet within that uncertainty, the faintest flicker of anticipation ignited within her. She approached David later, heart resolute but stomach churning with anxiety. "I think we need to talk," she uttered softly, watching him process her words. The gravity of the moment hung between them, bulging with unspoken fears and hopeful possibilities. As she met his gaze, something shifted, a grounding connection forged through swirling uncertainties. "This isn't just about you or me. We need to decide if we can do this together," she asserted. The weight of that agreement loomed large, yet she felt a surge of empowerment, a fraction of control over the impending chaos. Tensions of clarity ignited dialogue, but both felt the horizon of challenges yet unseen. Sarah's heart raced. She understood the stakes, the raw political and emotional complexities of a relationship wrought with deep roots. Would they find a way through? Trepidation saturated the moment, but she refused to retreat. The choices ahead were hers to define. Suddenly, every feeling, from fear to hope, cascaded into a resolve that reorganized her priorities. Yet with these revelations came the understanding that true confrontation with their realities awaited. But the unrelenting questions taunted her. What if they couldn't attend to the delicate emotions entwined with their decisions? With every heartbeat she questioned if it would lead to liberation, or further entangle them both. "We can't ignore reality," Sarah continued, a tone of determination blooming. "The time has come to face what it means to be a family, whatever shape that may take." And as she spoke those words, the gravity of their existence loomed larger, waiting to unveil what was yet hidden in their intertwined fates. As the golden sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the park, Sarah wrestled with the whirlwind of decisions that lay before her. She returned home, her pulse still racing from the conversation with David. This was just the beginning of a dialogue that could redefine everything. Her apartment felt unusually quiet, almost oppressive. Each corner of the space seemed laden with memories of nights dedicated exclusively to studying medical journals, of laughter shared with friends, punctuated by the thud of coffee cups and the lingering aroma of exhaustion. Now, as she stood amidst her reality, it was cloaked in an unfamiliar haze of vulnerability. Her gaze drifted to the bookshelf filled with texts, her career's foundation, and then to the neatly arranged photographs of her life unaccompanied by the prospect of motherhood. Overwhelmed, she sank into her favorite armchair, allowing herself a moment to simmer in thought. The weight of uncertainty pressed down on her, but deep within, a flicker of determination ignited. This was not merely a personal crossroads, it was where Sarah could choose to mold her destiny. Lily's earlier support echoed in her mind, a soft reassurance that she needed to tap into. Sarah grabbed her phone and texted, "Can we meet? I need to talk." A moment passed before a reply chimed back, a single word that felt like armor against the impending storm. "Always." The next day, they met in a cozy cafe, the smell of fresh pastries mingling with the invigorating scent of coffee. As Sarah recounted her conversation with David, the enormity of the situation unfurled like a map of uncharted territory in her mind. Lily listened intently, her brow furrowed, Yet a knowing smile began to creep in as Sarah articulated her fears. "You know, it's okay to be scared," Lily offered, her voice steady. "This is uncharted territory for anyone convinced that their life was supposed to follow a certain plan. But maybe there's more to your journey than you anticipated." Sarah considered this. Life had always revolved around her ambitions, each surgical procedure a step towards the future she believed she was destined to achieve. But was it truly the case? Or was she ready to embrace a larger identity, one that could encompass motherhood alongside her career aspirations? Feeling suddenly emboldened, Sarah explored the intertwining paths. What would it mean to redefine success? She mused aloud, her voice steadier than her heart felt. She had climbed many mountains in her career. Perhaps this too could be a summit of equal importance, demanding a different kind of resilience, a nurturing spirit alongside a determined one. Lily nodded, her supportive aura enriching the conversation. "You've helped so many people. Maybe it's time for you to also let others help you." It sounds simple, but the strength to ask for support can redefine your concept of family. With newfound perspective, Sarah realized she had been standing on the precipice of her next big challenge, learning to allow herself to be vulnerable. It wasn't just about her capability as an individual, but about forging connections that would uplift all involved. It was terrifying but exhilarating. As they finished their coffees, Sarah felt lighter, but the questions coursed through her mind. Just how could she acknowledge the potential of love within this chaos? What skills would she bring to this new role, and how could she embrace the fears that lurked in the shadows? "Let's talk to David together," Lily proposed, her eyes sparkling with encouragement. "Facing this with support makes it less daunting. Together you can carve a path through the uncertainty." The statement struck a chord within Sarah. Accepting and embracing support was a pivotal strategy she had not considered. This journey would not be hers alone. It was a collective experience, a partnership woven from the complex threads of human emotion. Determined yet anxious, she envisioned herself discussing this with David, her heart a battleground of hope and fear. Would they find common ground? Would they be able to shape a family journey capable of accommodating their individual aspirations and shared responsibilities? As she stepped out of the cafe, the cool air felt invigorating, washing over her with a sense of potential. The tangled web of her life began to unfurl, revealing paths not only limiting her, but also inviting growth. And as she journeyed through her thoughts, another question surfaced unexpectedly. Would embracing this unknown mean sacrificing parts of herself, or would it lead to a richer, more fulfilling version of who she was destined to become? The answers awaited her. But first, she had to confront David again, this time with an openness and vulnerability that could unleash undeniable truths about their future together. The stakes were high, and her heart thundered with uncertainty and possibility. What revelations would she uncover in that next pivotal conversation? Standing in front of her bathroom mirror, Sarah studied her reflection, searching for the resolve she had nurtured over the past few days. What had started as a flutter of fear had gradually morphed into a determined pulse, the heart of someone ready to confront the complexities of her life head-on. Tonight she would meet David, and the stakes felt higher than ever. As she applied her makeup, Sarah found herself lost in thought, a ritual that had been intimately part of her life. The brushstrokes felt soothing, yet they also highlighted the change she was navigating. Each mascara sweep symbolized not just her commitment to appearance, but to her newfound sense of self in this transformative phase. She wasn't just a surgeon, she was stepping into a role that demanded vulnerability, openness, and trust. What would the evening hold? She had rehearsed their conversation, but the reality of looking into David's eyes, facing direct questions and intense emotions, loomed heavily. Would he embrace her new perspective, or would he retreat to the safety of his preconceived notions about their lives? She dressed carefully, opting for a soft blue blouse that felt comfortable yet confident, an embodiment of her intention to initiate a discussion rooted in sincerity. Every piece of her attire served a purpose, reflecting the duality of her ambitions. Tonight marked the merging of two very different paths, her professional aspirations and the uncharted territory of maternal desire lingering on the horizon. After a brisk walk to the selected restaurant, she felt the familiar flutter of nerves transforming into a fierce determination with every step. The atmosphere inside the restaurant buzzed with chatter and delight, a stark contrast to the intensity of her emotions. Spotting David at their usual corner table, she took a deep breath, her hand brushing against the smooth stone of the table as she approached. "Hey," she managed, the vulnerability spilling from her with the softness of her voice. As they exchanged pleasantries, Sarah couldn't help but notice the twinkle of curiosity in David's eyes, and the tension that filled the air between them seemed almost palpable. "Sarah," he began, "I've been thinking about our last discussion. There's so much to unpack." His tone indicated he was eager, ready to delve into the complexities that had hung between them. "Yes, there's something I want to talk about too," she replied, heart racing. As they shared a few appetizers, Sarah could feel the magnetic pull of the conversation. With each shared laugh, the wall that had formed began to dissolve. She seized the moment, launching into her feelings, the exhilaration of the possibilities that lay before them as a couple, but tempered by the uncertainty that motherhood introduced. "David, I've been reflecting on the idea of family and how it could shape our lives. I'm not asking you to abandon your dreams, but—" "Are you saying you want to start a family?" he interrupted gently, leaning in with an intensity that demanded clarity. His straightforwardness caught her off guard. The truth felt like a live wire coursing through her veins. "Yes," she admitted, dipping her chin. "I hope it's more than just a dream. I want to be open to the possibilities this life could bring." David's expression shifted, uncertainty shadowing his features. "What about your career, Sarah? Your goals?" The question hung heavy in the air. How could she articulate the truth that embracing motherhood didn't mean sacrificing her professional goals? "I believe I can do both," she asserted, her voice gaining strength. "It won't be easy, but life rarely is. I've done the hard work in my field. Now I'm ready for a different challenge." His silence spoke volumes, the gears turning in his mind. Sarah's pulse quickened. She had taken a leap, exposing the core of her aspirations. Would he take the leap with her, or would he point out the chasm separating their dreams? "It's not that simple," he finally said, his voice a mixture of hesitance and concern. "Let's be realistic about what we're committing to." A surge of frustration coursed through Sarah. But what he didn't know about himself is that navigating uncertainty could lead to growth, for both of us. The evening stretched on, a conversation filled with moments of connection and conflict. They discussed fears, dreams, and the immense possibilities lingering on the edges of their reality. Yet beneath the surface, the acknowledgement of what could lie ahead added layers to their discussion. Building a future that could encompass both their worlds seemed daunting. As they embraced the end of the evening, Sarah felt the gulf between them had either narrowed or widened, remaining an unresolved tension. Outside the restaurant, the cool night air wrapped around them, coaxing the final words from her lips. "David, I believe we can create a family. Together. But it requires trust and openness." He hesitated, and in that pause, a universe of possibilities hung in the balance. Would he summon the courage to step into this new reality with her? Would they face this transformative journey as partners? As she turned to leave, a quiet determination pulsed within Sarah. She had placed herself on the line, and she was resolute that her worth lay not just in her career accolades, but in her willingness to evolve and embrace life's unpredictability. But just as she stepped away, David called out her name, his voice laced with a mix of caution and hope. "Wait, could we explore this together?" The question echoed in her mind, resonating with a complexity that promised transformation. With her heart racing, Sarah wondered if they could truly redefine their paths. What would they discover about each other, and themselves, if they dared to take that next step? The night air was crisp as Sarah stepped away from David, her heart racing with the weight of his words, lingering in the atmosphere between them. Each step felt heavy with anticipation and uncertainty. His question had ignited a flicker of hope amid her doubts. Did he really want to explore this path together? It required a leap of faith from both of them, and she knew the stakes were high. Back in her apartment, Sarah switched on the lights and sank into the soft embrace of her couch. Thoughts whirled like autumn leaves caught in a gust. The conversation had stirred something deeper within her, a realization that this was more than a discussion with David. It was a confrontation with her own aspirations and fears. What if she had misjudged their connection? What if she had miscalculated the depth of their commitment? Grabbing her journal from the coffee table, she began to write, a habit that had always helped her clear her mind. "What do I want?" she scribbled furiously. "A family? Yes. A career? Absolutely. But can they coexist?" The ink flowed as she articulated her struggles and desires, each word a cathartic release. Here, she felt safe to express the doubts she had kept hidden, both from David and herself. The idea of motherhood had always been intertwined with her vision of a full life. The childhood she had painted in her mind, filled with laughter, love, and late-night stories, seemed so far removed from the sterile world of surgeries and medical advances. Yet, the more she wrote, the clearer her thoughts became. If she could balance both motherhood and her surgical career, maybe she could redefine success. But how would David fit into that vision? As she pondered their compatibility, memories of their shared experiences flashed before her. Intellectual debates over dinner, weekend hikes, and whispered dreams under starlit skies. Those moments had forged a bond, but they were just as likely to be dismantled by the fears that lingered unspoken. Suddenly, she could hear her mentor's voice in her mind, warning her about the emotional cost of assuming someone would automatically understand her journey. Communication is a two-way street, Dr. Fisher had said, and assumptions can lead to dead ends. Sarah needed to ensure that their next conversation wouldn't just be words echoing in the air, but a genuine exploration of the future they could build together. Fueled by this newfound conviction, the next morning found Sarah in her lab at the hospital, performing a delicate procedure that required precision and focus. As she navigated the complexities of her work, she found herself reflecting on her life outside the operating room. She recognized the pattern. Each surgical success had resulted from a foundational understanding, trust, and risk. You had to be willing to cut through layers to reach something meaningful beneath. With renewed determination, she began to sketch a plan in her head for her next conversation with David. It wouldn't merely be a reiteration of what she felt. It would be an invitation for collaboration, a map for their potential future. She envisioned laying out her aspirations clearly, asking him to voice his own, and tackling the concerns that bubbled beneath the surface. They could be partners in this rebuilding of their lives, but it necessitated honesty from both sides. As the day wore on and she wrapped up her shift, the clarity of purpose filled her. However, the anxiety still gnawed at her. What if David wasn't ready to engage in this journey? What if their fears outweighed their shared dreams? Returning home that evening, she prepared for their next meeting, the dinner she had envisioned as more than just a meal, but a dialogue, a commitment to face their realities together. Yet, the could-be felt precariously balanced. And just as she stepped into the bathroom to refresh before David arrived, her phone pinged. The message displayed across the screen left her breathless. "I've been thinking a lot about us. Can we meet sooner?" Her heart raced. An unexpected urgency hung in the air, beckoning her toward a confrontation that could either fortify their bond or unravel it entirely. With a deep breath, Sarah understood one crucial truth. This moment could redefine everything. Would she have the courage to guide the conversation toward their uncertain yet promising future? As Sarah stood at the bathroom mirror, the fluorescent lights illuminating her face, she felt an onslaught of emotions rush at her. She couldn't afford to be unprepared. This moment held too much weight. That ping on her phone had added an unexpected urgency to the night. The outlines of her intention shimmered in her mind, edging her toward the inevitable confrontation with David. She splashed water on her face, breathing deeply to quell the anxious fluttering in her stomach. For years, she had crafted an identity defined by reliability and professionalism, a dedicated surgeon whose life pulsed with the rhythm of the operating room. But now, as she contemplated a future filled with possibilities, that singular focus felt inadequate. The dinner with David was not just a meeting, it was an existential crossroads. Choosing a soft yet assertive outfit that mirrored her internal conviction, Sarah took a moment to gather her thoughts. She opened the journal where she had poured her soul the night before, skimming over her written reflections like breadcrumbs left for herself. "Can I carve out space for family without sacrificing my ambitions?" she whispered, almost testing the universe to see if she would receive an answer. As she set the table, each plate and fork became a symbol of the life she desired, a balanced existence with room for both love and career. The subtle clinking of dinnerware mixed with the cadence of her racing heart as she conjured images of what their conversation might hold. Would David be receptive? Would he reveal desires she hadn't anticipated? Time crawled until the doorbell rang, and Sarah's breath caught in her throat. The moment had arrived. She opened the door to find David standing there, his expression serious yet hopeful. He stepped inside, and the air between them crackled with unspoken words. "Hey," he said, his voice softer than she remembered. "Hey," she replied, ushering him in with a tentative smile that barely masked her nervousness. As they settled at the table, their meal unfolded in a familiar rhythm of laughter and small talk. Yet beneath the surface, an electric tension began to fill the pauses. Sarah could feel it pressing against her chest, urging her to break the silence surrounding their true conversation. "David," she started, her voice steadier than she felt. "Can we talk about Us? He nodded, his gaze intent as she took a deep breath. I've been thinking about our future. I know we need to be honest about what we want. As Sarah spoke, the words poured out, a mixture of dreams, fears, and the foundational desires of her heart. She laid bare her longing for both a family and a thriving surgical career. David listened, his eyes flickering with understanding and contemplation. I want that too, he said slowly. But how can we make it work? There are so many unknowns, Sarah. What if one of us falters? Perhaps it's about creating a structure where we support each other, bottoming out the fears rather than assuming they'll encircle us. I think we both have to be willing to embrace vulnerability if we want this to stick. The dialogue deepened, revealing nuances about their hopes and aspirations that neither had fully acknowledged. With each exchange, those undefined fears began to feel more manageable, as if they were scaling obstacles together instead of avoiding them alone. But just as the atmosphere shifted toward a hopeful buoyancy, David leaned back, a frown creasing his brow. What if our paths lead us in opposite directions? His question struck Sarah like a thunderclap, her heart racing in synchronization with the beat of a new fear. What if this sharing brought them not closer but pushed them toward divergence? What if the very act of naming their desires solidified their separation rather than their union? The crux of the conversation sat heavily between them, a resolution still out of reach. In that moment, the responsibility of guiding them surged within her, a need to assert their journey without knowing the outcome. Suddenly her phone pinged again. This time, it was a message from Dr. Fisher. Remember, communication is the bridge, but it can also expose the cracks. Sarah's breath hitched at the weight of the moment, awareness dawning that perhaps the road ahead was layered intricately. Would this encounter solidify their futures together, or reveal fissures they couldn't reconcile? As shadows lined the walls of her small apartment, Sarah knew there was no turning back. The path she chose tonight would test not only her relationship with David, but redefine who she was willing to become. With determination knitting her brows, she turned to him, ready to uncover the depths of their connection while bracing herself for the tumultuous path ahead. How would they navigate the treacherous terrain of hope and fear entwined? Let's not stop here, David, she murmured, uncertain yet invigorated by the unfolding reality. This is just the beginning of what we have to build. Together. As David leaned back in his chair, his brow furrowing in thought, Sarah felt the weight of the moment pressing down harder than ever. The dinner plate still sat, forgotten, between them, their polished surfaces reflecting a tension that had swelled like an unrelenting tide. She had willingly thrust herself into a conversation that could redefine everything, and the anxiety of her vulnerability mingled with a strange exhilaration. What if we take our time, she proposed, her voice steady despite the chaos of her emotions. What if we define our goals together and not rush into anything before understanding what it all means? His eyes softened, but the uncertainty lingered. What if our individual aspirations collide? What if it doesn't work? Can you handle the possibility of losing this? Us? Her heart raced at his words, the fear gnawing at her insides. She had spent years building her career with precision, the sacrifices made for professional growth now threatened by the sheer weight of personal connection. But in his question lay a challenge, an invitation to confront her doubts head-on. David, this isn't just about losing each other, she replied carefully, searching for the right words. It's about embracing what we could be. I'm starting to recognize that I can shape my life, both in love and in my career. It's a process. What matters most is whether we can communicate through this. As if struck by revelation, David leaned forward, his expression shifting from uncertainty to openness. What if we created specific steps, something tangible that keeps our goals aligned while giving each of us room to breathe? The idea sparked something inside her. Planning, outlining. This was Sarah's forte. The excitement of strategy reignited her confidence, reminding her of her countless hours in the OR, always meticulous, always proactive. Yes, we could prioritize our ambitions and assess where they align, make a shared list, what we both want, but also what we could compromise on. His eyes brightened as her ideas flowed, and she felt a surge of empowerment. This was not just a conversation on their future. It was a collaborative project, a surgical-like precision in forming a partnership. They would dissect uncertainties, navigate fears, and build something organic. I know I want a family, David, but I don't want it to erase my identity as a surgeon, she continued, her voice gaining strength. I need to establish boundaries and know that I can thrive in my career, whatever that looks like. And you? I have ambitions too. I want to run my startup, and I fear diversion. But I see now how we can blend them, how we can support one another. David interjected, now fully engaged in their dialogue. As they dissected their lives between bites of cold dinner, Sarah felt her fears beginning to untangle. The act of engaging, of planning, unlocked a new level of understanding for both of them. Each goal unveiled in their conversation was met with conscientious reflections, not dismissive judgments. They were constructing a framework filled with possible avenues rather than barriers. But still lingering at the edge of every declaration was the haunting question of commitment. How solidified were these plans when faced with reality? Would they both stay the course, or would external pressures pull them apart, rendering their joint vision obsolete? A moment of silence fell between them, as if they were both caught in the gravity of their revelations. Sarah's mind swirled with ideas of project timelines and balance charts, but the emotional stakes felt higher than any surgical simulation she'd ever faced. This was about their lives. "David," she murmured, watching his face for a sign of hopeful resolve. "Are you still sure you want to pursue this? To add this kind of complexity to our lives?" His gaze locked onto hers, reflecting both apprehension and burgeoning clarity. "I want this, Sarah, but it means everything we discussed will require work. Work I'm committed to doing, even if it leads us into unknown territory." In that moment, clarity washed over her. Uncertainty had been a constant companion since their conversation began. Now it danced just out of reach. They were still on separate paths, but whatever lay ahead, they would navigate it together. As the evening wore on, shadows stretched across the room, mirroring the complex layers of hope and fear growing within her. Engaging in this transformational dialogue had ignited a fervor to reevaluate her life, her dreams, her readiness for co-creation. Yet, as she set the plates aside, a new thought emerged, overshadowed by the promise of a joint future. What sacrifices would she ultimately need to make for this union? And was she prepared for what that might mean? As David took her hand, a subtle anxiety pricked at the edges of her resolve, foreshadowing the forthcoming battles. The ease of conversation seemed fragile now, exposed to the permanence of commitment's demands. With a determined glint in her eye, she realized that their empowering conversation was only an initial step into a more personal conflict she had yet to confront. "Let's not just make plans, but confront what those plans will cost us," she whispered, heart racing with newfound urgency. What choices lay ahead would demand sacrifices she hadn't anticipated, testing her willingness to embrace the complexities of love and ambition. As they clasped hands, Sarah understood that the journey had just begun, and it would require more than dream charts and optimistic strategies. The horizon lit with anticipation of both collaboration and confrontation, but the question remained: could she truly balance both her dreams and his, without losing herself in the process? The morning sun filtered softly through the kitchen window, casting delicate shadows as Sarah poured her coffee, the familiar aroma grounding her in the moment. Yet, beneath the surface of mundane routine, her mind raced with thoughts from their conversation. The weight of commitment loomed above her, a constant reminder of the seismic shifts possible in her life. Each sip was less about savoring the rich flavor and more about steeling herself for what lay ahead. That day at the hospital, Sarah's pace quickened as she walked through the bright corridors. Her focus was razor-sharp. She had cases to prepare for, surgeries to conduct, but her thoughts kept drifting back to the night's revelations. The balance of ambition and love danced provocatively in her mind. As she scrubbed in for her first procedure, the sterile environment brought clarity. Here she was in control. Here she thrived. Yet, the moment she stepped into the operating room, she felt an unsettling urge to delve deeper into her internal landscape. Was she truly prepared to interlace her personal life with her ambitions? The delicate choreography of surgical maneuvers mirrored the complexities of her relationship with David. As she concentrated on each incision, she couldn't shake the feeling that she was also dissecting her future. The patient's body lay before her, vulnerable and open. Shouldn't she too be vulnerable with herself? Could it be time to undergo a kind of self-surgery, one that would strip away layers of fear and doubt? "Scalpel," she called, her voice steady, commanding. As she made the first incision, a surge of adrenaline coursed through her, elevating her confidence and reinforcing her decision to face the questions she had been avoiding. Each stitch she placed was infused with a new determination to confront the complexities of love with the same precision and focus she brought to her work. As the surgery concluded smoothly, Sarah felt elation ripple through her. This was her domain where she shone brightest. Yet fleeting, the triumph transitioned into reflections on her choices. After the shift, she found herself seated in her car, staring at the hospital, grappling with a moral dilemma. How could she prioritize David's aspirations while maintaining her own? Her thoughts swirled with possibilities that felt tantalizing, yet suggestive of inevitable sacrifice. Each option held weight, a reminder of the partnerships she would need to forge in both her professional and personal life. She arrived at home later, the lively chatter of the city thinning into silence around her. Instead of seeking solace, she allowed the uncertainty to seep in. What did it mean to carve out a life that melded aspirations with love? Would she require a full-scale commitment to both, or did the essence of sacrifice hold the key? With a flicker of resolve, she reached for her notebook, the pages still crisp from their recent purchase. Writing always brought clarity. As she jotted down her aspirations, it became apparent these were not mere bullet points. They were lifelines, representing what she was willing to stake in this unfolding journey with David. Assessing dreams versus desires turned into an internal audit, burning away any illusions she held. By the time she had filled pages, the weight felt lighter, despite still tinged with urgency. She recognized that she stood on the precipice. An exhilarating adventure awaited, yet danger lurked in the inevitability of challenges ahead. Would their relationship withstand the harsh realities of career imbalances and the delicate dance of shared responsibilities? As she turned the last page, suddenly a new question emerged, demanding attention. What if the pressures of ambition altered their love eventide into something unrecognizable? Would love endure, or would it crumble under the weight of expectations life placed on them? Just as the thought settled in her mind, her phone pinged, a message from David. "Thinking about us. Can we talk?" Sarah's heart raced, echoing with apprehension and anticipation. There it was, the imminent confrontation she both craved and feared. She took a deep breath, knowing the subsequent dialogue could either deepen their connection or show her the brunt of reality. As uncertainty mixed with hope, she replied, "Yes, let's talk." She had a multitude of ideas swimming in her mind, but would she have the courage to truly express herself and navigate the emotional minefield ahead? The very essence of their future depended on her willingness to be raw and open. With the stakes rising, Sarah understood this was no longer just about balancing her aspirations. It was a defining moment of self-discovery, poised at the edge of embracing love's complexities. The living room felt heavy with anticipation as Sarah paced, her thoughts ricocheting against the walls like the echoes of her own heartbeat. The feeling that time was suspended wrapped around her, and the weight of David's message settled uneasily. Would this conversation unravel everything or reinforce their commitment to one another? As the door swung open, revealing David's familiar figure, she noted the slight crease on his forehead. Could he sense her internal tumult, or was he grappling with his own doubts? She greeted him with a tentative smile, unsure if it would break the tension or amplify it. "Hey," he said softly, stepping inside. The warmth of his presence used to fill her with comfort, yet today it sparked uncertainty. They settled on opposite ends of the sofa, an invisible chasm growing between them. "Thanks for coming," she began, her voice wavering slightly. "We need to talk about everything. The future. Us." David's gaze was intense. "I've been thinking a lot about what we mean to each other and where this is all headed." He paused, and Sarah felt the air thicken. This was the moment they confronted the self-imposed barriers between them. She had prepared herself for this discussion, layering her thoughts into the written reflections of her notebook, but standing on the precipice of expression was daunting. "I think we're both at a crossroads," she admitted, feeling her heart race. "My career is demanding, and I don't want to lose the ambitions I've worked so hard for. I worry that if I give too much, I'll compromise who I am." David nodded, his expression contemplative. "I understand. But I want to support you, Sarah. It's not about choosing one over the other. I believe we can navigate this together, but we need to talk about how." Her breath quickened. Did he truly believe that, or was he saying what she needed to hear? "I want us to grow, but I also want to make sure that our ambitions don't eclipse our relationship." He shifted closer, placing his hand over hers, but the touch sent a jolt of conflicting emotions through her. She was both calmed and electrified by the proximity. Would this feel the same once they tackled the realities looming before them? "Maybe we need to be more transparent about what we want," he suggested, earnestness flooding his voice. "If we're going to make this work, and I want to, then we need an explicit understanding of our individual dreams and how they fit together." Sarah considered his words. Could a map of mutual aspirations truly illustrate their path forward? A raw honesty felt vital, a roadmap to success that required both of their dreams to interlace rather than conflict. "I wrote down my goals," she confessed, a small yet significant thrill sparking inside her. "Maybe we could share what we envision." As she reached for her journal, David leaned back slightly, observing her with interest. Under his watchful eyes, she sketched out her aspirations, revealing the ambitions she had isolated from their life together. Each word held vulnerability, yet also a newfound courage, as she shared aspirations that had kept her awake at night. David flipped through the pages, nodding, and the atmosphere shifted. Awareness dawned on both of them. This wasn't a battle for supremacy, but an opportunity to unite their energies. He took a deep breath. "I've also been wanting to talk to you about a change. A big one. My own plans have shifted." Her heart raced at the implication. A new thread wove into their already complicated tapestry. "What do you mean?" He seemed to wrestle with his own path, revealing fears and hopes that resonated with her in ways unexpected. As nerves twisted in her stomach, she felt something take shape, a broader vision of their future, one where ambition and love wouldn't stand in opposition. But then, just as she felt a flicker of hope spark between them, he added quietly, "I think we need to be open about everything moving forward, especially about the possibility of family." The words hung in the air, laden with implications. The idea both thrilled and terrified her. Was this the direction they were heading? As Sarah processed his statement, her resolve shifted once more. She felt the urgency of choices weigh heavily in the air. Prioritizing dreams was essential, but could they integrate the notion of family too? "Together, perhaps we can build the life we both want," she said finally, her voice quaking yet resolute. But could a blend of aspirations and uncharted territory truly lead them to fulfillment? The dialogue they had opened promised vulnerability and growth, but would they navigate the path without losing themselves? As uncertainty crested, Sarah realized the stakes had evolved dramatically, a choice between the career-driven identity she had formed and a familial future still cloaked in ambiguity. As David reached for her hand, their connection felt electrifying, yet precarious. "Let's not shy away from this," he urged, his voice thick with intention. Clarity beckoned from somewhere deep within, though shadows of fear lingered at the edges. The time had come to confront the unspoken. Could they embrace a future together that incorporated all that lay ahead? A sudden ping of her phone shattered the intensity of their moment, summoning both surprise and urgency. It was a message that could alter everything once more, fracturing the delicate balance they had just begun to explore. "What now?" Sarah whispered, uncertainty washing over her as she opened the notification. The screen glowed with words that threatened to reshape their discussion entirely. Would they be ready for what awaited them? As Sarah stared at the message illuminating her phone, time seemed to freeze. Her heart raced and settled into an uneasy rhythm as she felt David's curious eyes fixated on her. "What's wrong?" he asked, concern etched across his features. Holding her breath, she swiped the notification open, revealing a text from a colleague. "We'd like you to consider the lead position in the new surgical initiative. It's a big opportunity." Sarah's stomach twisted, a mixture of exhilaration and dread washing over her. This wasn't merely an upgrade in her career. The lead position meant more responsibility, requiring time and dedication that could pull her focus further away from the life she was beginning to imagine with David. "It's a big opportunity," she said softly, gauging David's reaction. He shifted closer, curiosity eclipsing his initial concern. "What does that mean for you?" "The chance to shape a program that could revolutionize surgical practices," she responded, the excitement sparking in her voice. "But it also means longer hours and less room for anything extra in my life." She paused, wrestling with the implications. "Anything like us?" David's expression shifted, a flicker of disappointment hidden behind his intrigue. "Isn't this everything you've worked for? Shouldn't it be a no-brainer?" "Yes, but my mind is racing with possibilities that aren't just related to the career path anymore. Before, I couldn't envision a life that included someone else's dreams intertwined with mine. Now," she trailed off, uncertain of how to vocalize her fears about combining the menagerie of her career ambitions with her evolving personal life. "Now what?" he prompted gently. "Now I'm faced with the probability that I could climb higher in a field I've sacrificed so much for. But what if that success comes at the expense of a family I've just started to consider?" Her voice shook slightly, and the vulnerability cracked through. "What if I'm torn?" David took a deep breath and let it out slowly. "I understand the weight of that position. I know you dreamed of situations exactly like this. But can it exist alongside what we're beginning to build together? Can it? She echoed, a surge of emotion sweeping over her. Would she be trading in her chance at family for the success she had once defined as paramount? Could she even seize the opportunity for professional growth while maintaining the new layers of connection with David? I want you to go for it, Sarah. I'd never want to stand in the way of your success, David encouraged, while infusing his voice with unspoken concerns. It was a mixture of support and looming apprehension that tied a knot in her stomach. But we need to talk about how this new role will affect what we've discussed about future plans. Everything. They were essentially at a crossroads, a pivotal moment colored by dreams and obligations, adding more complexity to an already fragile budding relationship. The frequency of uncertainty grew with every uncharted path, yet together they held the potential to build a future. Let's agree that it's possible to cultivate success in both our lives, Sarah suggested, the determination swelling within her. But it has to be a dialogue. Do you believe we can carve out space to nourish our dreams while nurturing a family connection too? David nodded, although the shadows of unspoken fears lingered behind his gaze. I think we can, but it will demand commitment. Our ambitions should complement each other, not conflict. Encouraged by his openness, she tentatively continued. Then we'll prioritize shared goals, establish schedules that outline boundaries for both our careers and personal lives. David raised an eyebrow, assessing the feasibility of intertwining their aspirations. And what if one of us feels neglected or unfulfilled while pursuing our own path? Then we tackle it head-on. We can support each other through those moments, she replied, applying the same assertiveness she had used in the operating room. Relationships, like surgery, are a series of delicate maneuvers. Communication anchors everything and mitigates risks. We must remain transparent. Agreed, he said, offering a reassuring smile that bridged the gaps of uncertainty between them. Her heart warmed, feeling alive in that moment, a shared commitment that could mold their future. But what emerged was a pledge to open up the channels of honesty even wider. They had ignited something beautiful through their shared dialogue, opening a door to explore uncharted territories bravely. Yet questions threaded through Sarah's mind. The gravity of her ambitions clashing with the uncertainty of motherhood weighed heavily. Just as she almost felt refocused, the specter of trepidation loomed close. Could they genuinely reconcile their dreams with the overarching question of family and emotional fulfillment? Would the conversations about nurturing love and career coincide with the pressure of impending motherhood? Are you scared? David asked suddenly, meeting her gaze with a blend of compassion and understanding. Terrified, she confessed, the word slipping from her lips as if naming her fear could alleviate its hold. But I'm figuring out that it feels terrifying to also know I've got someone beside me willing to explore this. As the words settled between them, Sarah felt the resolve firm within. They were not just two individuals traversing their current realities, but a duo willingly walking into the unknown. Emerging from their fragile moment of vulnerability, she took a steadying breath and squeezed David's hand. Together, let's confront whatever comes next. Family, careers, this newfound potential we're creating, all of it. Facing David, she felt the flicker of hope re-emerging. It was an illuminating realization that maybe, just maybe, both motherhood and career could coexist. They rose, slowly, drawn to the potential horizon ahead, a vision that could redefine ambition and family for them both. Yet lingering still was the weight of their growing responsibilities. The notion of balance required navigating both their dreams and aspirations, but in a way that fostered growth rather than sacrifice. Stepping into the night air, renewed determination flowed through her. Embracing love didn't mean giving up on who she was. It was about evolving into someone courageous enough to forge a path that encompassed every aspect of her life. This dawning realization was merely the first act in a narrative woven with the strands of their unique journeys, and she was ready to embrace it all. Let's set those boundaries and keep pushing for our dreams, shall we? David's voice, suffused with optimism, echoed in the quiet night. Definitely, she replied, a smile bursting through the shadows of uncertainty that had once overshadowed their interactions. The path ahead would be difficult, but the foundation they were forging would be worth the challenges encountered along the way. Together they embarked into the unknown, equipped with intention, ambition, and the possibility of a new life blooming before them. And as they set out together, Sarah felt the thrilling surge of empowered transformation, reflecting the tenacity of their union. They weren't just writing a story about ambition and love, They were merging them into a shared quest toward fulfillment. Each step felt lighter, unshackled from the fears that once governed her emotional landscape. Sarah now knew that possibility and growth could flourish as part of a beautifully complex life, one that didn't shy away from the intricacies of motherhood, but embraced it as the next thrilling chapter. This was only the beginning, and Sarah was ready to push forward, to embrace all of it: success, love, and family, and discover how they could redefine life together. As she took David's hand, a foundational determination pulsed between them. With hearts open wide and futures entwined, they would explore every moment as it came, ready to navigate the waves of ambition and love into the brighter days ahead. In this moment of mutual trust, Sarah understood that she was not just chronicling her story, but making it a reality, a declaration of growth unfurling before their very eyes. And as they ventured into the future, she firmly believed they could conquer every challenge that crossed their path together. More than anything, she felt a deep-rooted affirmation. She was ready to embrace all the possibilities life has to offer, alongside the person who saw her not just as a surgeon, but as a woman worthy of love, a partner destined to thrive. This was not just a story of love, but one of growth, resilience, and an unwavering commitment to the reality where dreams would not slip away but evolve, no matter what life threw their way. Now, as the sun sank on the horizon, illuminating their next steps, Sarah couldn't help but smile. Their journey had only just begun. You need to subscribe now to ensure you don't miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm so these heartfelt stories reach those who need them. Comment below your reactions and theories about this journey, and share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Join the community that values personal growth and empowerment. Don't wait even one more second to support the channel.